In this video, we're going to focus on how you can create a reset button, which is a real HTML button just built into the canvas. And if I click on this, we can see here nicely it will reset the chart. But if I refresh, it will be shown again. However, if I zoom or if I change the size of the chart, you can see the position of the button will be consistent. So as you can see here, if I move this, it will always stay within the same position here nicely. And if I do that, there you are. So let's start to look how to do this. So let's start to look how to create a HTML button in the canvas in Chartjs. So the first thing what we need is to get our default code. So we go to chartjs3.com, getting started. This specific link here you can also find in the description box. Once you're on the site, scroll down and just copy this chunk of code here. If you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here. So then I'll just paste it all in there, cut this out, and then I will put this in here. Save that and refresh. There we are. So now we have this, and what I want to do is I want to have a nice button in there. So to do this, we need to make sure we create the button, but the button must be created immediately, and after that it must be also when we resize the chart, when the chart changes it, the position must stay or maintain the same. So it needs to recalculate its position, so it will always have the right amount of padding and margin around it here. So let's start to do that. So the first thing what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here on resize in the options column, and I'm going to say here the context, or basically a argument. So let's do that one, context, and make sure we say here resize. Then what I'm going to do here is we're going to create a callback, so we need this function or arrow function expression. And then in here, what I will do is the following. So basically what we need to do is we need to create a button, because I want to create a button and not have one already prepared. So that will mean that we should create it within here, but there's another but, which is if the button already exists, we should not recreate another one. We should just get the original one and then reposition that. So this is very important to understand. So what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here I'm going to give this the reset button, and then we're going to say equal document dot get element by ID, and we're going to say here reset button. So if I save this now, and if I do let's do a console log first, and then we say here reset button, save, refresh, and of course it won't work yet because we forgot a comma here. Save and then refresh. Open up developer tab. You might see here we get the value of null, meaning we cannot find anything with this specific value or this constant or let value here, which is correct. We didn't create anything here. So that would mean that here now we're going to create if statement. Say if statement, if there is no reset button, in that case, let's say here console log no, save, refresh. As you can see here, now it starts to recognize the no value. If there would be one, then in that case it will work. So we have this now, and let's start to build here one first. And this is very important. So let's start to work on this. Let's delete all this. And then what I want to say here is, I'm going to say here again, reset button. I don't use constant. I'll just grab this one here. That's why I have a let value for this. So we can refer to this now. I'm going to say equals the document dot create. I'm going to create an element here. Element, and this element will be, of course, our button. And I'm just going to use capital locks for this. So we're going to create a button. And once we have this, what I want to do here as well is I'm going to use a very simple text, but you can do anything you want. What I'm going to do here is constant, and I'm going to give it a text. So it's a button text equals, and then say here again document dot create text node, because we're going to create a text information. And here I just put in R for refresh, or maybe for reset is probably the right term. I'm just going to make it like this, very simple. Then what I'm going to do here is, what I want to do here is I want to give it an ID as well. So we have here this ID, but we need to grab this reset ID. So I'm going to say here, then I'm going to say here the font, let's see here, I'm going to say here reset button, which is this one here, this element we just created, dot ID equals, and then what is our ID name? We're going to grab here this item. So once we did that, then we have this. Maybe if you want to have a class, so I'll just add up here a simple class. We're going to say a reset button. Then we're going to say here class list dot add. And then I'm going to just add something here. In this case, I'll make it simple to say hello. So once we have that, we have this one item. Then what I want to do here is, this is very important, we need to position it, and the position will be relative to the canvas. So the reason why is because we need to have here later on the amount of pixels to get in this area here. So it'll be relative, and we have to calculate exactly only based on the canvas itself and not within the entire CSS. So I'm going to say here reset button dot style dot position. Let me say equal to relative. And then once we have this, I want to insert or append the button. But where I'm going to append the button, this is very important. We're going to append it not on the canvas, but basically on the item that holds the canvas. So if I click on this, you will see here we have this canvas ID that I want to grab here from the chart box. So the chart box is the key for us. So let's start to work on that. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I want to append the text here. This text on here, on the button, and then afterwards I want to append the button on whatever the div is here. But I cannot use here the ID name because maybe in your website you don't have this ID. So what I want to do is I want to grab here this is the item and then the parent of whatever this tag has. So the parent of this tag, which would be this one here. So let's do this. So I'm going to say first of all reset button, and then I'm going to say append child, which would basically mean to connect, and appending to connect the child to the parent. And in this case, this is the parent, and what is the child of this parent? That is the button text. I'm going to put that in there. So once I do this, if I would save this now and refresh, you will see here there's nothing yet here. If I would look at here, can we find the button? No. The reason why we don't find the button is just simply because we didn't append the item yet on this chart box class. So what I'm going to do here now is enter, and then I'm going to say here, and what we're going to do is here we're going to get this context, and let's do a console log to show you what this context all consists of. Save this, refresh console log, click on this. You can see here this, and then what I really need is the following. I need the canvas, basically this here. I need this canvas ID, and from there on, basically wherever the item is or whatever the parent is of this item. So this is the child. What is the parent of this? Well, in this case, of course, the parent would be the chart box. So I'm going to do here the following. I'm going to say here context.canvas and then dot parent node. So I need the parent node. Then I say dot append, and we're going to say append child because we're going to connect the child to the parent. So what is a parent? I don't know exactly the name of the parent, but I know that the parent must be wherever the child is and then one level up, which makes sense. So I'm going to say here, in this case, the parent will be on this one here, or at least we want here the reset button. I'm going to put that in there, save that. So wherever we put in this reset button, that will be in here. So once I save this, refresh, we should see here now the button. And there we are. The button is positioned, but the button is still at the bottom. But you can see it's nicely in the chart box here. What I want to do is I want to move this up here. So how can we do this? Well, we need to now work on the position. So we have the if statement here. So if it is not existing, we create one. And if it is, if it does exist, then we don't do this here. So that is very important. And the reason why this is important is later on, I'll show you exactly why. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get here the constant, and we will say here the x position, which is basically the position. I want to put it here, around here. So we have here the x position, and let's say here, how do we get here the value? Well, let me show you again here. I guess we can use this one again. Put it in there. And let's comment this out for now and just save refresh. Let's look at the console log. How do we get our information here? Basically, what we need to do is we need to work with what we call the chart area details here. This is basically the chart area, and if you want to understand the chart area, I highly recommend you to watch the video Understanding the Chart Area in Chartjs, which you can find in the description box as well. Highly recommend it if you want to do more advanced positioning things. So what I want to do here, in this case, is basically the following. I want to have the X position, so that will mean here. It will be the, maybe not even the left, but probably the right or the width of it. So we have to check on this. So what I'm going to do here is, well, let's test here. I'm going to get the width. So I'm going to say here, X position equals context dot width. Oh, sorry, is that correct? We are here, not even the context dot width. No, we get the chart area dot width. Context dot chart area dot width. That's the first one. So then, what I want to do as well is for the Y, we can probably get, I guess here maybe the height. And then, let's save that. And you will notice that this will not really work, because if I put this with the height, it will go down in pixels. So we have to probably have the negative. So we'll see on that one. That doesn't matter. And then what I'm going to say here now is reset button, because that's basically the item here. Is this button. And then we're going to say here dot style dot top equals, so let's say here the Y position. Then we're going to concatenate plus pixels, the X amount of pixels. So basically what we're going to do here is just CSS command, but directly through JavaScript. And the reason I'm doing it like this is because we need this automatically on resize. We need to recalculate. This is very important. I have here top, and I realize that what we can say here maybe is left. And then the left position starts at here, and how many pixels do we need to go to the right? So we're going to say here X, and then we have that. Once I have this, we can save this, and then we can say refresh. Alright, so we have the X position has already been declared. Fair enough. Let's see here. We have this, and here, sorry, I have this double. Save that, make sure that is Y. Refresh. Alright, so we get here the reading of width. So that doesn't work. So what we can do here, and in that case, then we can remove this chart area, and then I guess we can do even here the context width. So let me double check on this one. Save, refresh. Click on this, and let's see if we can find the width. There we are. We have the width here, and we also should have then the height. The H should be here somewhere as well, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe not. So I don't see any height here, or maybe it is a different name for that. The width and height. Well, alright, so I'm just going to grab this just to check here. And then let's play around with this width and see if we have a height. I'm surprised I cannot find a height. So let's save that. There we are. As you can see here, it works. However, it goes too far because we get the full width of this. So fair enough. So what we need to do here is we're going to deduct this by, let's say, 40. If I do this, refresh, there we are. We could maybe do even lesser, but that's alright for now. So I'm going to accept that. And then the next thing what I want to do here is I want to get here, can we get maybe the context height? So I'm not sure if there is a one, or I thought there should be one. Here, let's save that, refresh. Alright, we don't get an error here. So I guess this will work. And later on I'll just have to check here what is the height. Save, refresh. And there we are. And as you can see here, I realize the height here, we have to do negative, because now it goes from here, it goes all the way down, sorry. So we have to push it up. So I'm going to say here, negative, by doing a multiplier of -1. So there we are, we're going here, but then we should go down. And how many we should go down, we can just say maybe here, let's say plus 40 as well. Save. And alright, so that is not the case. So what you can do here maybe is a -40. There we are. So we have to work with a reverse logic, how many pixels we have to go up in the negative form. So that's why we have to calculate. But anyway, you can estimate that one. So once we have it correctly here, and I guess we could maybe give this a nice design. We have here the hello class. So what I will do is, just for the sake of it, to make this class here, So I'm going to say class hello. And then what I want to do here is maybe just simple border radius 100%. So I have a nice circle. Then what I want to say here, the width, we could say here width maybe 30 pixels and then a height 30 pixels as well. So height 30 pixels. And once I have that one, and I will say here maybe font weight bold. Oh, not font weight. Font weight, that's the one I want. Bold, save, refresh. Alright, so we have a button here that looks quite nice. So is this working correctly? If I move here, of course only on refresh it works right now. What we could do here is just to see if this works. Let's say here 80%. So you can see as we move, does it respond correctly. As you can see here, it starts to move and respond correctly. So this works. This is very important because we have here the check item if it exists. If we would not do this, what will happen is, let me show you. We're going to create multiple buttons. Then let's move. As you can see here, it is moving because it recalculates every time. So of course, we don't want this. So we save that again, put it back, there we are. Alright, so you can see here, it will nicely resize along with it. So now we have this one. So what I want to do now is, let's trigger this. So basically what I want to do is, I want to zoom in here, or by default it's zoom in, and if I click on reset, I'll be completely zoomed out on our chart. So what we're going to do here is basically on, well, let's say here on the X scale. I'm going to make it very simple, nothing fancy, and I will not go too deep in this. I have other videos for that. I'm going to say minimum. Let's say here minimum will be 1, and max will be 4. If I save this right now, refresh, there you are, we are now more zoomed in. And what I want to do is, when I click on this, I want to zoom out. So let's start to work on this. So how do we do this? Well, basically, we have a few things here we can consider. We can have this button here. We need to create a function. So what I'm going to create here is function. And I will say here reset the chart back to its original state. And then later on, what I want to do, of course, is to hide this button. So what I'm going to say here, first of all, is you can see here, this is the minimum and maximum. And the default would be 0, and then the maximum will be 6. So if we do that, we have Sunday, that's 6. So that's correct. So this is basically the default state. But what I want to do with the default state, I will make it a formula where we get the length of the labels here. So it will calculate like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here my chart dot config dot, and I'm going to say options dot scales dot x dot min. And if you're wondering why I'm getting this, I'm trying to get here. How do I get there? My chart to config, and this config here is basically this config constant. Then to options, go down here to the scale x min. We say min equals 0. And let's copy this. And we say here the max. I will not do the y value, but you can imagine how to do the y value. So I'm going to say max this, and once we did that, I'm going to say my chart dot update. Save. Refresh. Alright, so now if I click on this, it doesn't work yet. And the reason why, of course, is I forgot to create an add event listener. So what I'm going to do now is basically to trigger the button. Because right now it doesn't recognize that if we click on the button, there is no triggering of this function. So I'm going to say here, and I'm going to grab the button. So I'm going to say document.get element by ID. And then I'm going to say here, reset button. And the reset button is, of course, this item here. We can just grab this here. Then we say a dot add event listener. And then we say here, if, when will we trigger this specific function here? If we click on this, and then we're going to say comma, and then maybe register the event, although we won't be using it, and then create a quick function. So we're going to say here reset function. We will trigger the reset function. So if I save this, refresh. Alright, so 135, there's something wrong here. Add event listener, and then here we have the comma. You have the parentheses here. So what am I missing? We have this. Of course, you can see here I'm forgetting one single parenthesis here. So now that one was missing. So this is the closed parentheses. Now it's correct. Save, refresh. Now if I click on this, there we are. Alright, so once we do this, what I want to do, of course, is to hide this button. This button has no value, or, well, should not be shown now. It doesn't make any sense to have something to reset if it's already reset. So what I'm going to do here is, not in here, but just down here, I'm going to say here the following. You can just grab again this button, then assign a quick CSS. Make sure you do it after and not before the update. And the reason why is if you do that, if you don't do that, or if you do it before, it will maintain it. So I'm going to show you later on. So I'm going to say here reset button, and I say yes, style dot display equals none, or maybe because I realize that we don't solve this item here. Well, let's save that first. Let me show you. We click this reset. There we are. What is happening here? You can see this jump here. So basically, I have to solve that one with the CSS, but I will ignore that. I will not spend time on that for now. But if you don't want this, or maybe you still have some text underneath here and you want to just solve that. Well, what we could say here is, instead of style, we can say visibility hidden. What that truly means is that it is still there. It calculates that space because we put it here, we moved up. That's basically the issue here. And then it will maintain here. It's hidden, but the space assigned to it is still there. That's basically visibility hidden. And display none is hiding it and making sure that the entire space that is assigned for it is being removed as well. So that will be one of the options here. But of course, we have one issue here. Is what I want, of course, is, well, let me first show you this one. If we do this here above, let's see what happens. Save, refresh. There you are. Oh, apparently it just works as well, so that's fine. So we can ignore that. But what I want to do more is, what happened if we have here already 0 and 6? Then we have this forgotten item here. So we have to solve this as well. It should be only shown if we are zoomed in. If we're not zoomed in, we should be refreshed. But you can imagine that if you would have another button, you can zoom in and zoom out. You could play around with that. Then you can say here visibility hidden, and then visibility visible, basically. That would be the other option. Visible. That's the other item. So you can play around with that. So that is a very easy item. However, how do we solve here this? Well, let me remove this and start working on here. So what I'm going to do here is basically the following. I'm going to create here an if statement. And this if statement, and then of course I realize I need to still hard code this one, or soft code this. So what we can do here is, maybe that will be even better. So you get this one, and well, 0 by default, it's always 0. But this one here should be max, should be equal to, let's solve that first. Let's comment out this. I want to just solve this one first. So how do we get this? Well, we go to my chart. And then what I want to do is from my chart, we're going all the way up here to data, and then say labels. So we go down here, data.labels.length. Of course, remember in array, plus it counts the length. So we need to deduct that because an array is zero-based calculation. So there we are, -1 in length. There we are. Click on this. Beautiful. So this works, but of course we have to make sure that the zoom in here is, or at least it recognizes if it's already zoomed out, should be hidden. So what are we going to do here? We're going to create an if statement, and then what we're going to say here, context, not config, but context.config, then dot options dot scales dot x dot min. So what I'm really doing here is an if statement. We're just going to check only one thing. Are we now having the value of 0 on min here? So we're going to say, alright, we're going to check now what is the status of this. Are we already set on 0? Yes or no? If we are, well, hide it. If not, show it. That's basically what we're doing here. So say this, but we have two conditions. Because imagine we'll be zooming in and then you go to the left or the right, then this might be different. Maybe we are min on 0, but the max might be on 3 or 4 or whatever. So we're going to say this. So if this is equal strict that, and if the maximum value would as well be equal to the max equal, and the equal will be, this could be here just exactly the same. You have here the data labels. You can just grab this. I'm just going to grab this one, and I'm going to say here context dot data dot length. Let's see if this works nicely. Now, and I'll just say here for now console.log height. So if this is correct, if this matches this, we need to hide it. So refresh. Alright, so we have here something, but of course cannot be property of config on labels. So we have here the labels. I guess here I have double data. Sorry, that's bad. Save, refresh, hide. Alright, so it recognizes this, so that would be nice. So what we can do now is just very simple, an if statement. And this if statement will say the following. We can say here, reset button dot style dot display or visibility equals hidden. And then we semicolon equals that visibility hidden. Then what I want to do here is the following. We say here else, or we can just do this, enter, and then we say here else. If it is not the case, I want to say here visibility will be visible. It should be visible. Save, refresh. Alright, there you are. So this works nicely. And then if I would do here 5, save, refresh, there you are. When you click on it, it will be nicely. You can imagine we could put another button here to show it. I will skip that for now. I have another video how you can play around to use a zoom in, zoom out button. However, this is one of the ways how you can play around by adding real button here. And the only thing here, maybe we could do an on hover. Here, this, I guess that would be here on the hello. We can just say here hello, and then here hover. Then say here cursor equals pointer or something like that. Save, refresh. Alright, that's interesting. It doesn't work. Hover, or is that single colon? There we are. That's it. Of course, you could also do that with another way, just in JavaScript itself. However, you can just put in classes that would be even better. I would highly recommend that. So this is basically how you can play around by having a nice button, because sometimes a button is far more easier to use compared to Canvas or have a built-in Canvas button, because you have to think of all the functionality that is already built in CSS, but in Canvas you have to make them your own. So that's the way to do it. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to have your own zoom out button, in that case I'm going to recommend you this one here, where you have zoom in, zoom out, and the reset button. So this one, we'll play around with it, and I would highly recommend you to explore that one, where you can do a lot of things with it.